welcome back to my channel. We are in a new setting. This is my bed, and as you can tell, I have a lot of flowers. And the reason I chose this destination is because this video is all about how to romanticize spring, and I felt like the atmosphere and the vibe and the setting I'm in just really reminds me of spring. This video is going to be in two parts because I have a lot to talk about. I'm going to be talking about TV shows and books and different hobbies that you can do, and I have a lot to talk about. So it's definitely gonna, so that way it's not too long. I combined it into two parts, but yeah, I hope you enjoy. All right, first off, I want to start off with the books because this is a booktube channel. And yeah, I just thought it'd be best to start off with the perfect, like, books that just have that wonderful and incredible spring feeling. Just the perfect books to just get you in the vibe and the mindset. So, first of all, I want to start off with some poetry. I would like to start off with, I have this right here. It is the complete poems of John Keats. First of all, look how pretty it is. There's little birds on the side. I think it's so pretty and so cute, and it also just looks like spring. My copy is a little bit banged up, if you can tell. Like, there are a bunch of, like, yeah, like, see the spine down there is broken and there's a bunch of wrinkles on it. But I love this book. I hold this book very near and dear to my heart. I actually finished all of John Keats' poems last year, and he quickly became like my favorite poet of all time. Honestly, a lot of the romantic poets, now that I think about it, are usually some of my favorite poets, but specifically John Keats, because I think he just writes in a way where he depicts nature so beautifully and vividly, and he almost like transports you to that world that he's in. Like, it's like if he's describing a lake, I feel like I'm there with him on the lake. I feel like I'm there with him experiencing these things, and it's like he's making a painting with his words. It's very beautiful and vivid and descriptive. And yeah, like I said, he is one of my all-time favorite poets, and I've been rereading his poems this year. I'm about halfway through. Right now I'm at Folly's Song, which is one of his poems, and yes, like I said, he's incredible and beautiful, and if you like poetry, I definitely recommend go checking him out because I wouldn't say he's hard to understand. He is a romantic, so you have to understand that the time period he lived in, they did use very like um they used very flowery language, but I wouldn't say that he's very hard to understand. Even with the flowery language, like, I was still able to understand him. Um, and yeah, I just think that he's incredible and beautiful, and I would definitely go check it out. And then the next poetry piece I want to talk about is Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass by Lana Del Rey. If you didn't see my All the Books I Read in 2025 video, I recommend go checking that out because I actually talked about this book there, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but I loved this book. I didn't know that Lana Del Rey wrote poetry. Also, the cover is very spring. I don't know if you guys can see that, but like, there's oranges on the cover, and it just feels very spring. Like, it's very pretty. um this book, I think, has spring vibes because Lana Del Rey writes in a very melancholic way, but also in a very hopeful way. Um, and I feel like that's what I think about when I think about spring. I think about kind of like the melancholy of it, but also like the hope of it as well. And I think there's something really beautiful to that. She also has like a few poems in here about nature, and it's also not too long to read. So if you're kind of like getting burnt out halfway through the year, and spring is kind of halfway through the year, like, not really, but kind of, then like, I think this would be a really good one to pick up because it's just very short and sweet and simple, and I love it. All right, now I'm going to move on to some classics that I think are just perfect for the springtime. And of course, I had to start off with the infamous The Secret Garden. First of all, let me just show you how beautiful this is. Like, look at the gold lettering, and like, it also has like a gold edges, and then it has a little bookmark on the inside that's also gold, and like, just beautiful illustrations. This is a copy that my sister gave me, actually. Ugh, guys, look at the inside. It has little flowers on it. It's so stinking beautiful. But yes, like I said, this is a copy that my my sister gave me, and she's not really into reading as much, and The Secret Garden has always been one of my favorite reads, and I saw this on her shelf and I was like, oh, can I please have that? Like, can I, like, look how beautiful it is. I was like, can I please have this? Because the version I had, it was the one that had it had like the movie cover on the front, and I don't like people on the cover very much, and it was also black and white, and I feel like when I think of The Secret Garden, like I think of vivid colors, like how this is showing. So that's what I really wanted from this book. So I'm very happy that she gave it to me. She gave it to me very generously. So if she's watching, hi, thank you for this book. Um, but it's beautiful, and not only is the book cover beautiful, but like the inside and the story is also so beautiful. So if you don't know what this book is about, it's basically about this girl, and one day her parents tragically die and she has to move to Yorkshire, I believe, and she lives with her uncle. And in this house, it's like she discovers a secret garden, and within that secret garden lies many more secrets that kind of like lead to the family, and it's very mysterious. And like I said, it's set in like the English countryside, which I believe Yorkshire is in the English countryside. There's a lot of descriptions of the garden in this book, which, also make it very spring, because, garden spring. It's very mysterious, I would say. Like, I think it's like when I first picked it up, I thought it was going to be very like sweet and wholesome, and it is sweet and wholesome. But I think the first half of the book is honestly more just about her discovering the garden and then discovering the secrets of the house that she moves to. And I love that aspect about the book so much. I thought it made the book so cozy and so like so much more interesting to read. And I think a lot of people get intimidated to read classics because they feel like they're going to be boring. But this is why I mostly read children's classics, because children's classics are less intimidating and they're less boring. And yeah, if you like want to start a classic but you're a little intimidated by it, I would definitely recommend The Secret Garden, because it will definitely, it's very wholesome and sweet. Oh, I accidentally dropped it. It's very wholesome and sweet, but it's also interesting enough to keep you entertained the whole time. So yes, definitely recommend it. It's very good. Right, and then the next classic I have is Heidi by Johanna Spry, or Speary. I don't really know how to pronounce that. Look how pretty the cover is. Most of the time I don't like people on the cover, but I don't know why, but I actually don't mind this one. Like, this one is actually very pretty to me. This is like one of the classic oh, it's not. I thought it was a penguin paperback. It's not. It's my bad. But I just think it's so pretty. Like, something about that orange coloring on it, I think is really pretty. And even though I know that this is like the movie cover of Heidi with like the goats and stuff, there's something about it that's just so pretty to me, and I can't really describe why. The only thing I don't like is like it says courtesy of Walt Disney Home Video at the very bottom, and I'm like not a super big fan of that, because I'm like, the rest of the cover is pretty. We didn't need to put Walt Disney on there, but whatever. This book is also so perfect for spring, because if you haven't read the book or watched the original movie, I highly recommend. Heidi is the sweetest story about this little girl going to live with her grandpa in the mountains for a time, and it's perfect. It's actually set in spring most of the time. There's like a lot of very vivid descriptions of the Swiss mountains, which is where this takes place, and like it's just so wholesome and sweet and perfect and amazing. I love the descriptions of the town and also the house that Heidi lives on. I love the descriptions of like even the goats that like graze around the Swiss Alps during the spring, and I just think there's something so sweet and wholesome about that. The story itself is also very sweet and wholesome. Like, the grandpa that we meet along the way at first appears very grumpy and kind of antisocial, but then the more you get to know him, you realize there's a lot more to him than just this grump. Heidi is also this very sweet, lovable little girl character, and there's just, yeah, there's so much to this. There's a reason it's a classic. There's a reason there are several different movie adaptations to it. It is perfect. And again, this is another one of those where it's a children's classic, so if you're intimidated by classics, I still think this would be so easy for you to read, because it's not it's not that hard to read in my opinion. I still think it's fairly what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's fairly easy to understand. And yeah, it's just sweet and wholesome, and I definitely think you should try it this spring. All right, and then the next one, I actually want to mention two books, and that is Little Men by Louisa May Alcott, as well as Joe's Boys and How They Turned Out by Louisa May Alcott, who is actually on the back of this book. I know the glare on this is really bad, but the cover the glare is really bad. Let me try to scoot closer so you can see the cover, because the cover of this one, specifically Joe's Boys and How They Turned Out, is very spring. Yeah, see, if I turn it like that, you can see it. Do you see like the flowers in the trees? It's a very, very pretty cover. And the reason I'm mentioning both of these and not Little Women is because, first of all, when I think of Little Women, I think I associate it more with the summer. I think, not with the summer, oops, with winter and Christmas time. And I think it's because a lot of that book takes place during the Christmas season. But like with drop my mic. With these books specifically, I associate a lot with spring. I think they don't necessarily take place in spring. I think for the first half they do, but then for the rest, it's just kind of the rest of the seasons. But there's just something about them that I associate with the spring. I think it's like the very sweetness and wholesomeness of these books. I would say that Little Women is very sweet and wholesome as well, but Little Women also like is a little bit sad to read. I think there's a lot of tragedy that happens in Little Women that doesn't necessarily happen in the rest of Louisa May Alcott's stories that have to do with like, you know, Joe and like the rest of her family. And I really think that these books are perfect for the spring. Like I read Little Men first as soon as I finished Little Women, and then I went straight to Joe's Boys. I didn't know that she wrote 3 books in the story, and they are just so sweet and special to me. I think there's something about these stories that are so wholesome and sweet. They mostly take place with Joe's story, and Little Min starts out with her school for boys that she has with the man she marries, that Professor Bear. I was stuttering right there, my bad. And just Little Men starts off with like their little stories as they're, you know, little men, they're little kids in the beginning, and then Joe's Boys is when they're much older. And I think this book does masculinity so well. I think for the time period it was written in, it actually portrays masculinity in a way that's very soft and gentle and sweet, but also very protective and kind, which I think is something that is kind of a testament to the story, because again, it was written during a time where I feel like men had to be described in a way that was a bit more, I don't know, a bit more tough, or a bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of sometimes a bit more toxic and sometimes a bit more dominating. And not to say that the men in this story are less masculine, but I think that there is something of a softness to them with these stories, and I think that softness to them kind of makes them more masculine, which I think is really beautiful, and I think Louisa May Alcott writes it really beautifully. Also, the illustrations in here, and again, I don't know if you can see that, and I'm so sorry. The glare on my camera is so bad, but the illustrations are very spring. I think they just have a very spring like look to them, and they're very beautiful. And yeah, like I said, when I associate certain things with spring, it's always things that are very wholesome and hopeful. And I would describe these two books as wholesome and hopeful. They are perfect. And honestly, I kind of like them more than Little Women. Not that I didn't like Little Women, I did. I just feel like I like these books more. But yes, I would definitely recommend reading them. And again, they're pretty easy to read because they're children's classics. Right. And then I'm going to be talking about, and this isn't, I wouldn't say it's a classic in the sense that you're thinking of. This is actually a Christian classic, and it's called Hind's Feet on High Places. Glare is terrible. I'm so sorry, guys, but it is very pretty, and the cover is very spring. This book is incredible and beautiful and very near and dear to my heart. I read this book during a time period where I was struggling with a lot of anxiety in the faith. Trying to say that in a way that doesn't sound too trauma dumpy, but yes, I did read it during that time period, and it greatly helped with that. And the reason I'm suggesting it as a spring book is because the character that we follow in this book, she has to grow these hinds feet, so to say. Um, and in order to do that, she has to climb this mountain. And the mountain that's described in the book is described in like this very lush and flowery and foresty way, and I couldn't help but like think of spring when I read this book. Also, I read this book during the spring, which kind of made it even more perfect. I think I read it during Lent during the spring, which also again kind of went with the vibe because it's a Christian Catholic book and it's Lent and spring, and I don't know, it felt like it was the perfect thing. I really think this book is a good book to read like near the end of Lent towards Easter, or even like just during the Easter season in general, because I feel like it can go with either of those seasons if you're Christian. Um, it's incredible. It's an incredible story. The story focuses on our main character, whose name is Fear, I believed, and she comes from this family who um they're very pretty much cowards, and one day this man shows up to her, and he's supposed to be this representation of God, and he's like, do you want to have your name changed, and do you want hinds feet? And these hinds feet are supposed to like be able to help her climb this mountain, which I think is supposed to be this representation of heaven. And she's like, yes. And then she goes on this journey to climb this mountain, and I just think it's perfect if you're a Christian or a Catholic, or even if you're not that and you want something that's like a bit philosophical about life but still kind of has spring vibes. I think it's very perfect for that. This book also, even though it's very popular within the Christian community, it's kind of an older book, and I don't hear it getting talked about as much within the younger generation as I do with the older generation, which is okay. I just think like that's why I want to talk about it, because it's kind of niche. It's not really niche, but like it kind of is, and I just think it's perfect for the springtime. And then it would not be a spring book rec video without recommending Howl's Moving Castle. I don't know if you saw behind me, but I did this painting of Hal and Sophie. Let me bring it up closer to the camera. But if you can't tell, I am obsessed with Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle was the very first Ghibli movie I have ever watched, and then it got me on into my obsession with the rest of the Ghibli movies. And I read the book last year and I loved it. I loved it so much. Again, I also put that in my 2025 books for 2025 that I made, and I I loved it so much. This has honestly spring and summer vibes. Um it's perfect. If you don't know, the book is basically about Sophie, and one day she gets cursed with old age by the Witch of the Waste, and she has to travel to Howl's Moving Castle, which we see on the front cover, and he is a wizard, and he basically is helping her to get herself back to her younger self. But there's obviously a lot more to the story, and there's a lot more adventure and stuff as we go along, and it's perfect and beautiful, and I love it so much. I might like the book more than the movie, but I also really haven't decided yet because I do love the movie. The reason I think it's perfect for spring is because it's set during the springtime. There's very much flowery and lush descriptions of that we get of like the seaside and like the rolling hills with flowers on it. It also again has that very wholesome found family vibe, which I said I associate a lot with spring. It's also like what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's very cozy, and I think a lot of cozy fantasy. I personally think the best times to read cozy fantasies are during the spring and the fall. Like, I don't know why, but I just feel like those are like peak times to read cozy fantasy, and this is definitely cozy fantasy. I actually want to finish the rest of the series that Diana Wynne Jones wrote. Maybe this year, I haven't decided. But yes, it is perfect. I think it is the definition of the perfect spring read. All right, and it would not be spring unless I mentioned a rom com. So I'm going to mention Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Again, the glare on the camera is so bad, so you cannot see like beautifulness of this cover. So look, it's Liz and Wes, and then you have the cute little yellow lettering, and then like the side. And my copy has sprayed edges, and on the back it says the infamous quote, "She isn't you." Guys, I love this book so much. I haven't even talked about this book on the channel yet. I think I made like a YouTube short of it, but I haven't like fully talked about it. Guys, I adore this book. If you don't know, I'm a rom-com girly. This book is the definition of rom-coms, and it is so perfect. So perfect. For those of you who don't know, Better Than Movies follows the stories of our main girl, Liz, and she is a hopeless romantic. You know, she has curly red hair and she wears all these vintage clothes, and she likes to watch all these oldies rom-coms, which is just adorable. And one day, this boy that she had a crush on for years shows up at her high school, and she's like trying to figure out how to get with him. So in order to do this, she fake dates her arch nemesis, who is her next door neighbor, Wes Bennett, who is shown in the front cover, although not very well. And they basically fake date, and it's kind of like To All the Boys I Loved Before, if you've ever seen that, and you know the way it ends, and it's perfect. The reason I think it's perfect for spring specifically is because rom-coms are the best time to read spring, because spring is kind of like the season of love, and this book is the definition of a rom-com, not only because it's like a like romance book, but also at the beginning of each chapter it tells you a quote from a rom-com. So let me read you, like, for example, on chapter 2 we have a quote from Harry Met Sally, which says, "A woman friend, this is amazing. You may be the first attractive woman I have not wanted to sleep with my entire life." Or you have another one that says, I didn't really realize that one, it's a little inappropriate, but um we have one from Pretty Woman that says, "You're late, you're stunning, you're forgiven." um and yeah, you just have little quotes like that from like infamous rom-coms at the beginning of each chapter. There also is a Liz and Wes playlist, and it's like their playlist, and it's mostly love songs. We have like Paper Rings by Taylor Swift, and it's just like songs that like you would associate with them, and Lynn Painter actually purposely put that in the book, which I just think is so cute and so perfect, and I love it so much. It's literally adorable. It's a clean rom-com, and I love that because, as you know, I only recommend clean books on this channel. It's so perfect. Honestly, this book defined my taste in not only men, because like when I read it I was like, I'm in love with Wes Bennett and he is the standard, but also it defined my taste in rom-coms and romance books. And I just don't think, I think after reading this book it's like there's gonna never be any other rom-com that is a book that meets the standards of Better Than the Movies. I love this book so much, and you've probably seen it all over Book Talk. So if you haven't read it yet, let me be the first to convince you, or not the first, but one of the many people to convince you to go pick it up. And then the next book I want to talk about is The Wind in the Willows. I don't own this book physically, but I wish I did. This book is perfect for spring. Perfect. It's another, I probably should have mentioned it in the classics because it's kind of a children's classic, but this book follows a group of animals. Like, we have a frog, a toad, I think we have a city rat and a country rat, and it's kind of just like, I don't know how to describe it, but this book is basically like their daily lives out in the countryside. And the reason I think it's perfect for spring is because animals, I associate animals a lot with spring, and this book is also set in the countryside during spring. And it has, I don't know how to describe this book, but it's very sweet and wholesome, which I said is perfect for spring. But there's also a lot of like really deep, profound prose within this book, which I think is what makes this book very poetic, and kind of like it's a book that stuck with me for a while. I think it's also very descriptive. It has these very beautiful descriptions of like the river, or like there's like I think the country rat lives on a little hill, and there's like really beautiful descriptions of like his house, and it's just very cozy. um which is another reason why I think it's perfect for spring, because it just has like that very beautiful and cozy feel. And yeah, if you've never read this book, which like I don't know, I feel like most people probably have as children, but if you haven't, again, I definitely recommend it because it's very easy to read, but it's not something that will bore you just because it's a children's book, because like I said, it has a lot of really beautiful prose in it. So it's not just, oh, it's like silly talking animals. Like it is that, but there's also so much more to this book. And again, it's set during spring, so cannot recommend it enough. It's so good. All right, and then I'm going to talk about Half a Soul. I love this book so much. This is another romance book. This is a romanticy book, and it follows this girl who only has half a soul, and then she is engaged to this man who is a fae. And this world is kind of set up in a way where there is fae because it's like romanticy, and he she kind of goes on this journey to get the other half of her soul back. I'm not describing it too well because it's also one of those books that's kind of hard to describe. But it's basically that, and then of course because she is arranged to this man, like there's a romance and tension that grows between them. I think this is perfect for spring because I think romanticy is really good for spring. I think fairies are very good for spring, and I think the descriptions of the fae in this book are just they just give you that vibe, you know, that spring feeling. It's another, like, again, it's clean. There's nothing really in this book, but I just think it's so perfect if you want a cute little romanticy during the spring. And it's very easy to read. Like, I actually read it in one sitting, and I never read books in one sitting. I am such a slow reader, so the fact that I could finish this book in one sitting is actually insane. And then I want to talk about the infamous Anna Green Gables. Honestly, any of the books in this series, but if you don't want to read the full series and just read the first book, that also has spring vibes. If you don't know, Anna Green Gables is about Anne Shirley, who is our main character. And in the beginning of the first book, she comes from this orphanage and she goes to live on Avonlea Island with her um, adopted aunt and uncle. And it's just about the story of her growing up and meeting people. It's very sweet and very wholesome, which I said I associate a lot with spring. It also it's mostly set in spring. I feel like most of the books are set at least in the beginning in spring, and it has these very beautiful and lush descriptions of Canada and like the countryside and the flowers blooming and everything, and I just think it's perfect and beautiful, and most people know what this book is about, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But yes, if you have not read this yet, I cannot recommend it enough. It's incredible. Now I really just want to move into like some good TV shows slash movies that I think are perfect for this spring. First of all, I want to start off with some animes. And the first one I want to start off with is Your Lie in April. Perfect, perfect, perfect for spring. First of all, it's set in April, which, you know, again, springtime. I would say watch this one with caution because it's very heartbreaking and it's very sad. And, like, for some trigger warnings, there is, like, some things to do in it with parental abuse and whatnot. So yeah, again, watch with caution this spring because it's not an easy watch for sure, but it's also very beautiful. There's a lot of really beautiful scenes in this anime that just it's so perfect for spring. Like it's so perfect. I think like one of my favorite scenes, there's a scene between our female and male main character and they're like sitting under a cherry blossom tree, and it's just like the way it's drawn is so beautiful and so incredible and so amazing. So please go watch. And the next one is another anime, and that's From Me to You. Guys, I have not finished this anime. I have a confession to make. I have not finished it. I'm on season 2, but even though I haven't finished it, I still know that it has spring vibes. This book, not book, oh well, this anime is actually set during spring. It's like set during the school season in spring. And if you don't know, this book follows our main girl, and she is kind of like shy, and a lot of people think that she's weird And a lot of people think that she's kind of like a ghost and kind of scary because she doesn't really talk that much, and she kind of like just stalks around the school, and she's kind of awkward and doesn't have a lot of friends, which I felt that while watching it. I won't even lie, because I was kind of like that in high school. And so, because she has that reputation at her high school, she kind of feels like she's never going to make friends. And then one day she meets our MMC, who ends up befriending her. And he's kind of like the popular boy in the class. And so, because of that, she makes a lot more friends because of him. And as they end up becoming friends, like a romance grows between them, and I love it so much. Again, it's set during the springtime, so it just has like that perfect vibe. It also has romance in it, which again just reminds me of the spring. There's a lot of side characters in this TV show also that I just love and I've grown really close to, and they have their own romance storylines, but of course the one I'm mostly invested in is the main storyline. And I just think it's so sweet, and I think it's so wholesome. And even if you don't really like anime that much, I still think you would really like this one because I think it's very cute. This is another one where I just really want the manga of it because I just think it's so cute. I know there's a K drama to it, but I don't know if I'll watch the K drama because I don't really like it too much when I watch an anime than a K drama based off of it. But I don't know, I might because I really like the story. But yes, I just think it's so cute. And so, right, those are all the things that are on my list of how you can romanticize your spring this year. Let me know things that you do for spring each year that help you romanticize it. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Goodbye.